when getting busier actually makes you poorer. People will come to me and say, Andrew, like we grew our sales by 20 grand a month, but our net profit didn't move. If you don't have a P&L, because you don't have a bookkeeper, just suck it up and do it. Don't try and do it yourself. That's stupid. Welcome back to the Restaurant Growth Accelerator. I am your host, Andrew Scott, multi-unit owner for almost 20 years. And now with OwnerShift, we help restaurant owners increase their sales, increase their profitability, and spend more time working on the business instead of inside of it. And that actually brings me to our topic for today, which is when getting busier actually makes you poorer. And so it's really interesting. I had this comment on one of my my ads today, and it just talks about how if you have a lower prime cost, you would make more money. And so what the guy said, he's like, I completely disagree with your logic. And the reason why I disagree with it is because we would have, like, if we have 300 customers or 100, my labor cost is going to stay the same. And if we had more customers, my labor cost will go down because I'm still staffing the same. And I would make more money that way. So what I need to do is actually have more sales. So I wanted to dive into that a little bit because that is a common misconception. And the biggest fundamental thing is that we have to understand that our scheduling should match our volume. Now, there's a couple exceptions where that would come into play, but for most restaurant owners, your scheduling should match your volume. So for example, you shouldn't be scheduling like it's a Friday night on a Monday, right? Because you're not going to be as busy on a Monday as you are on a Friday night. And if you walked into your restaurant on a Monday, then obviously you're nowhere near as busy. What is everybody doing? Like, are they just there? I don't know. Are they playing? I don't know what kids play on their phone. I know that Candy Crush was something that a lot of people played a little while ago. I don't know. I once had this guy play like Nintendo DS in the bathroom. He did like these half-an-hour bathroom breaks. So definitely not what we are going for. But I don't know what people would be doing. And I found like whenever we overstaffed, it was kind of funny because if our labor cost at one of our locations was, say, 2 or 3 points higher, what's funny is that what immediately stopped happening is their weekly cleaning duties wouldn't get done, their monthly cleaning duties would get done, and the complaints from staff would go up that they didn't have enough people. And their overall job satisfaction went down because we also measured that too. So all of that went down, even though we started spending more on labor as a percentage. So let me ask you this, why would that be the case? Well, the reason why that's the case is because people change how they work based on the situation. If you have an impending deadline coming up, you're going to work harder. If you need to submit something tomorrow, you're going to find a way to get it done. If that deadline is 3 weeks from now, you're probably going to take it a little bit slower and you're going to work a little bit slower on it. It's procrastination in human nature. There's two types of people that get stuff done right away and people that wait to the last possible moment to get it done. Most humans are the second one. So they wait until they're forced to do it. So we have to create this artificial pressure. So anyway, back to this guy's example, there's a couple situations where that would be the case, one of which is if you are down to bare bones staffing. And so again, my very first restaurant was a quick service restaurant. We could run it with one person, but I couldn't staff less than one person. The only thing we could do is change the hours. So I couldn't staff less than one person. So in the middle of the day, if we had no sales for an hour, well, guess what? I was upside down on my labor costs because I had to pay someone to be there to keep the store open. There's not much I could do. Sometimes maybe if you have one front of house, one back of house at your slowest times, that's the least amount that you could staff. So therefore, there's really not much else that you can do in that situation. So in that specific scenario, yes, you can't reduce any further. You can only go up. But most restaurants aren't at that place where they simply can't go any lower. That's not the majority of the restaurants that we work with. So that's why most of our restaurants actually will vary in labor costs based on their volume. They'll staff based on that because that's just a better way to do it, right? Because in a lot of larger corporations, what they'll do is they'll hire people on. They hire on full-time people at whatever salary, and then how they handle that stuff is when business shrinks or when things go down, they do layoffs. Right? So with restaurants, it's a little bit different because we can kind of control the shifts that they work and change things. We can hire part-time people. We can, some people come in and are looking for different expectations for different shifts. And so we have to kind of look at our overall scheduling and staffing based on that. They just understand that, okay, we're going into a busy season, therefore we need to hire more. Okay, we're coming into a slow season. Okay, well, that's when some people might be leaving for college, or there might be some turnover, so then they just don't get replaced when we're heading to a slower season. Now, the other alternative is if you are fully staffed because you are normally extremely busy and you literally are fully staffed and you can't fit another person in the kitchen. Like every station's full, like everybody's there, you can't fit another person in. And so therefore, if you have a drop in revenue, obviously that's going to spike your labor, but then you would send people home early and stuff like that and adjust. So I just kind of wanted to talk about this example because it's a big misconception, because people are like, man, if I just had more volume, everything would be amazing. And so let me tell you a couple examples where that isn't true as well. So we've had some clients come in, and one of the first things we do is we take a look at their numbers, right? So if they don't have a P&L, which by the way, you should have a P&L, like every business in the entire business world has a P&L, like that's required, when you file your taxes, like that's the stuff that needs to be there, because how else are you going to know what you spent, what you made? Like it's how you make decisions. It's your source of truth for how you're making business decisions. So like, just if you don't have a P&L, because you don't have a bookkeeper, just suck it up and do it. Don't try and do it yourself. That's stupid. That's going to take way too much of your time. Unless you have a background in bookkeeping, which most of you don't, just don't even try, because you're just going to screw it up and your accountant's going to have to charge you to fix it at the end of the year anyway. So you might as well get it done right the first time and actually make good decisions. And if you don't have a good accountant, find a different one. Anyway, I get a little heated about that topic because it's so prevalent. Most people are like, well, I look at what's in the bank account. And I'm like, great. So you can see the end result, but you don't actually have the information to be able to change the end result, because you don't know what was spent, where the money went. Like you don't know any of that stuff. So, and we need that in order to make decisions. And that's why we need to have finances. So anyway, P&L is number one. If they don't have that, we use our internal weekly tracker, which basically we basically take all the information, we look at their food, labor, their alcohol costs, we look at their sales, we look at the sales broken down in different departments, and then we also do forecasting on it, stuff like that. Anyway, so what we have there is I've had a few clients come in, and they would come in and their prime costs, so their food and labor combined, would be somewhere in the neighborhood of 95%. We've actually had some that come in over 100%. So just so I am clear when I'm saying this, that means that every time they sold a product, they lost more money than they took in. I am not kidding. I wish I was kidding. But there are some people that come in like this. And so, it's really easy to make changes, because like they're just, like their prime cost is so high, we drop it. We can drop it by 20, 30 points. So like all of a sudden they go from hemorrhaging money, because again, if they lose money on every sale, then all of their fixed expenses just become a negative on the P&L, right? So these people are typically hemorrhaging like, 10, 20 grand a month. So it's really easy to turn them from negative 20, 30 to making 20 grand in a month. So it's really easy to do that for us. So we actually love clients like this. But having said that, that's a situation where like if you literally marketed for more customers, because a lot of them came in and said, Andrew, like we just need more customers to be fine. We ran their numbers and we're like, dude, like you should just shut down. Like that, like you would actually lose less money if you ceased operations right now. Now, obviously that's not what we advised them to do, so we fixed it. But like literally, if your prime cost is over 100%, you might as well, until you get your shit in order, you might as well just stop. So that's kind of the funny part of it. But anyway, so a lot of people that we see have prime costs, typically, let's say 65, 70, 75 on the upper range. That's the norm, right? And so the industry standard, I'm using little air quotes here, industry standard is about 60%. That's what everybody says. Oh, if you can have like, 60%, food and labor costs, so like 30 food, 30 labor, 30 fixed and then 10 profit. That's a good margin for a restaurant. I mean, I think that's bullshit personally. I think you need to work on a 55% prime margin, which will give you an extra 5 points. And obviously, if we get your sales high enough, then your fixed costs will go down in comparison, because the goal should be profitability wise to hit 15, 20, 25%. That's kind of your goal that you should be hitting. 10% profit, once you factor in loan payments, once you factor in paying yourself, because typically you're taking an owner's draw. Again, it's a different podcast that we talked about that. But at the end of the day, 10% disappears real fast. And all of a sudden, all it takes is one bad year. All it takes is one freak ice storm in February, which happened this year, or a snow, like whatever you call it. There was, a few years ago, there was an ice storm in Texas too, anyway. Hey, quick break in today's episode. Do you want to know exactly what's holding your restaurant back from higher profits and more freedom? I'm offering a limited number of free 15-minute restaurant assessments this week, where my team will personally pinpoint how to get you more profitability and more freedom with your time and map out the steps you need to get there. Simply tap the book a call link in the description below, and we'll see you soon. Whole bunch of disruption. All it takes is, gas prices to go up. All it takes is that it doesn't leave you room for error. And then all of a sudden, what erodes first is your profit. So we need to protect that. So we need to have enough margin to be able to pay our loans, and we then need to have enough margin to be able to withstand the changes and the equipment breaking. Because guess what? You're paying loans. Most of the SBA loans are usually like 10-ish years or so. Your equipment's not going to last that long. By the time you get to, the end of that loan, you're going to be replacing equipment. And so then you're going to be doing equipment replacement on top of the loan payments you have. And then after your loan's totally done, you're going to have to end up doing some renovations and more equipment's going to go down. So it's like, there's never not going to be that expense, like in some fashion. And I know a lot of people think that, once my loans are done, it's going to be great. I also thought that too. I was also dead wrong about that. But that's what people think. So we need to be more profitable today. We need to have enough margin today to make sure that happens. So that's why I talk about a 55% prime cost. So like I was saying, most people come in with, say, 65% prime, 70% prime, 75% prime, somewhere in that neighborhood. And so here is the reason that I talk a lot about prime cost, is because you can control it. Unless you're one of those two situations I talked about earlier, where you are, at the bare minimum threshold, or you're at the top threshold. Unless you're one of those, if you're somewhere in the middle, you can control what you staff. So like, say normally on a busy night, you've got, 6 people working. On a slow night, you've got 3 people working. You can then vary hours and vary stuff to match the volume, right? So you have the ability, at least from a labor perspective. Your food costs should stay relatively static as a percentage. Unless you're buying like high volumes, you can get discounts and stuff like that. So you definitely should. So as soon as you have more locations, you can get economies of scale. But, we even help people with negotiations and stuff like that on their vendor agreements, and can usually save some points there. Anyway, point is, for most people in that range, what we always teach them is to control their prime cost first. The reason we do that is actually easier than you think. Because most people come to us and they're like, Andrew, I've tried everything. I'm as lean as I can possibly go. There's no way we can get that number down. And then sure enough, 4 weeks later, we're down 5 points, and they've got more cash coming in, more is in the bank account. We're oh my God, I didn't think that was possible. And that's the biggest thing we do, right? Because we take everything that, we see, we'll take your business, and then we look at the 1,000+ businesses that we've helped that are all making, 20, 25% profit margins, and go, okay, that's what they can hit. They have the same concept as you do, or a similar type of restaurant. Okay, let's apply the same things we did with them to you. And magically it works like clockwork, 'cause it does every freaking time. So we just do the same thing and you get the similar results, and it's easy. So that's why we talk about this, because it is easier to manage your prime costs and do that better. And there's 100 different ways to do it. What we do is we go in order of priorities. So we take a look at your business, we take a look at everything that you're doing and all the things you've tried before, how that's worked. We collect the data on all that. We do a deep diagnostic, and we're like, okay, so let's make changes in this order. This one is going to be the least friction and gives us the most results. Okay, we do that first. Then we move on to the next one, and we kind of go down and down and down, and we make some subsequent changes. So that all, leads to some great end results. It's never just one thing. It's usually like there's no silver bullets. There's just hundreds of golden BBs is the way that Alex Ramosi puts it. So that's why we started there, because it is easier to do that because we can control it. And the other thing too is it's actually the fastest. So literally like 1 week you are spending 10 grand, and then the next week you're spending 9 grand. That means there's an extra $1,000 in your bank account. It is instant, right? So like that's why people feel it a lot faster when we start making these changes. That's why we focus on that first, because it's the quickest way to get cash into your account, because the alternative of that is to grow your sales. So what we recommend is first, let's get you to a lean model, because if you still stay with like 70% prime cost or 75% prime cost, that means like for every dollar of revenue, we're still only keeping like 25, 30 cents of each dollar. And there's going to be marketing costs associated with actually getting that revenue. So therefore, your margin's way thinner on that. And so literally you'd have to bring in 10 times more in sales to actually get the net benefit that you could do literally in 4 to 6 weeks by controlling your prime cost more. That's why we start there. And here's the other thing too. Most people that tell me, Andrew, I need more sales, they also don't have a big marketing budget. They're always like, I need more sales. Like, we got to do marketing. I'm like, great. What kind of budget are we talking about? And they're like, I don't have one. And I'm like, okay. So well, then that's going to be a little more difficult, because it does cost money to market and do paid traffic. Like it is. So what we do is we first reduce prime cost, put cash in your bank account, take that cash that's in your bank account, and then we invest that into marketing. And then by doing so, you're at a much lower prime cost. So every dollar of sales that we get is far more valuable, way more of it drops to the bottom line. And this is how we scale people up to having those 20, 25% profit margins. But we always start there first, because if you're not running a lean model, like, we need to perfect that first. Otherwise, you're just going to try and grow your sales and spend tons on marketing. And you're going to be busier, but you're actually not going to be any more profitable. Like, I've seen this way too many times. People will come to me and say, Andrew, like, we grew our sales by 20 grand a month, but our net profit didn't move. And I'm like, yeah, because your prime cost stayed the same, because as you got busier, you just staffed more people and you spend more on food. You didn't actually change anything internally. Again, because most people are not at those bookend scenarios, like where they're too low or too high. Like, most people, they get busier, they staff more. So their costs just stay in line unless they change them. And most restaurants don't know how to, like, their staff don't know how to work more efficiently, right? Until you teach them that. They're not used to being busier. So therefore, we need to teach them to be more efficient right away and do things differently, and then grow the sales. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. And now the other thing that I really wanted to talk about here is also like weekday versus weekend. There's this saying, like, is this a feature or a bug, like, of your business, right? So like an example of this is someone who comes to me and says, like, hey, Andrew, like, our summer season is great, but our winter season is slow. And so they spend all their time trying to fix their winter season, which I can understand why they're doing that. But I'm like, okay, but like, that's just going to happen every year. So we need to plan for it and stuff like that. But that just is the business. So how can we actually go and do some stuff that's going to make things better then? But at the end of the day, we just have to expect. It doesn't mean your business is broken. That just is the business, right? And we just have to understand that. And so your weekends are always going to be busier than your weekdays. But what we actually need to start doing, because like, I get so many people that come to me and say, Andrew, I just need more foot traffic on Mondays and Tuesdays. And I'm like, great. The reality is fewer people are going out on Mondays and Tuesdays. Like, it just is, like, it's just a thing. That is the reality. So yes, you can try and get more of that market share, or conversely, what I did in the past is I tried to find ways of people who were busier on Mondays and Tuesdays, or like ordering food on Mondays and Tuesdays. How can I capitalize on that business? So one of the biggest things I did, I mean, this is no surprise to anybody, but I invested heavily in catering and finding groups that were ordering. I invested heavily in delivery and stuff like that. This is back before like Uber and all of that stuff came around. Like, I was investing heavily into that, and that, brought my business up by 30%. Then the catering brought it up by another 30%. So like you start stacking these things together, and pretty soon, my sales had doubled, and they tripled actually, after about 5 years of kind of implementing this stuff. But I knew that my weekends are going to be busier. That's just the way it was. I'm like, okay, so who's going to order more on Monday and Tuesday? Well, there's a lot of businesses that need food on Mondays and Tuesdays. They have meetings, they have all that kind of stuff. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to do a catering program. That's what I did. So it's just one of those simple things. So you got to look at your business and say, okay, out of all the things I could do, because most businesses have way too many things that they could do, and they mostly die from trying to do too many things that actually aren't the right thing, because most restaurant owners, as you guys know, don't have a lot of time. So what we need to do is actually focus on the right thing. So if you were in a situation where your prime costs are above 65%, because below 65%, like, it can go down, but it's not like crazy crucial. But anything above 65, that needs to be your top priority, finding a way to get that down. And then after that, once you get it down below that to say 60%, 55%, that kind of area, then we're like, all right, how do we grow sales, right? If you can take more on the weekends, that means we just need to advertise more overall, right? If you can't take more on the weekends, that means we need to try and figure out how we can sell more at different times, or be more efficient, turn tables quicker, have more of an average check, maybe have like a weekend menu with the higher prices, just to make the most we can out of every customer that comes in during that time. Or the alternative is we could also focus on doing something to try and boost our weekday sales. And so those are kind of your options that are there. Again, every business is a little bit different. Everyone, has a unique flavor, unique problem, but just in general, fix your prime costs first, then move on to marketing. Because in some cases, for some of you right now, if you actually brought on more customers, it would actually make you the exact same amount of profitable that you are right now, or worse. So want to make sure you guys understand that. So this might be confusing. You might have questions, so feel free, email me, message me, whatever. Let me know. Happy to address some of those questions on the podcast. All right, guys. Hope this was helpful, and we'll see you soon.